I think we're maybe all going through our individual cycles and our trials and tribulations, if you want to call it that. But I think also it's a weird time where everything is kind of changing, and there's maybe more of a macro cycle going on too. Do you what do you think is at the other end of it?
Honestly, I feel like we're on the head of a pin kind of thing where it could go either way. We could become a world that is very restrictive and authoritarian, and technology takes over us. Being prosperous is only for a few, not for everybody. Rights are given to certain people who control us and deserve it more for whatever reasons. You know, we still haven't ended the conflict that started 100 years ago with the Bolshevik Revolution, for example, which is communism, and and I would even go back to the French Revolution, which is who gets to be on top? Do certain privileged people get to be on top, or do we all share in the power and the abundance? And we haven't really answered that question yet because we're still fighting it. The other side of it is maybe we all wake up and we say, this doesn't work to have a single person, a king, a ruler, very rich people control everything. They're not the boss of me. They're not the boss of all of us. We need to create a world where all of us matter. And so if we see the connections between all of us, and we can't say that, well, we shouldn't give health care to an immigrant, for example, because they don't deserve it. We're just the quiet masses and we die off, and we have our quiet little lives, and the really rich, powerful people, they're the ones that matter. We have to make that distinction. And we, the people, have the power to do that. But we have been kept fighting each other over religion and who gets to have what. And hopefully, our eyes are starting to open collectively to this does not work. We have to take care of each other. We have to care about the other person.
I saw a documentary, not a document, it was kind of like a documentary interview style videos, maybe 40 minutes long, where this guy went to, I think, and you'll have to correct, and you probably know better than I do, but some major city 5 or 10 miles from Gaza, or where most of, I actually don't know what to call it, but basically he was in this city, and this catastrophe is happening basically, next door. And he's going to the markets, he's checking out the nightlife, he's checking out the beach, like he's at the beach and everybody's out, everybody's just doing their thing, everybody's enjoying themselves. And when he asks, like, well, okay, so 5 miles up the road, people are being bombed, there's no water, there's no food. Like, how do you feel about that? There was like this weird tension where the person interviewed like had to kind of had to say, like, almost like, I don't care, but you could see almost like the physical tension in them that they did. Like, it was like it wasn't, it was like ignorance. So like it almost like
Ignoring.
they just
Yeah.
couldn't see it. And to me it was crazy because I've been feeling in my own way, I guess, kind of in the same way. Like, I'm ignorant. Like, I'm kind of living my life. It's not all, peaches and rainbows for me. And I'm having, my own little bout of things that I have to deal with, but more or less there's food on the table. The water is going through the pipes. It just kind of made me think, I think it kind of brought it close to home. Like, whether you're, 5,500 or 5 miles away, um, it was just kind of mind blowing to me that 5 miles away, people are living life as normal, basically living life like I'm living life. And I don't, it kind of gave me like this weird, negative solidarity of being super far away with the people that are right there and not doing anything about it. And all these little wars happening everywhere, Venezuela, like all this stuff. Like, but then you look in your own city, you drive down the streets, there's rows of RVs, there's rows of people in tents.
Yeah.
Uh, I've become conditioned to ignoring it. I believe that evolution is happening, and not that, gosh, I'm not trying to like excuse people killing people or violence or anything like that, but the fact that that's been happening since the dawn of time, it's still happening. Maybe it's a part of our nature, but for those who are able to see it and be compassionate, knowing that there's not like a whole bunch you're going to do to stop a war or to stop that human drive to kill and hunt other people or to have your tribe win, even like when it comes to politics or like a super watered down version of sports, like it's like we're advanced enough to know it's not the way, but it's kind of like our nervous system. Like we have the tools to calm ourselves down. We have, our breathing techniques, we have the knowledge, the awareness, and we practice, but it's still there in us. And we have all these techniques and the knowledge to cope with it, but it's not like we eradicate it. It's not like we've evolved enough where that isn't there and it doesn't keep popping up somewhere.
Yeah.
And it scares me a little bit.
It is scary. I mean, there isn't really there's nothing in between us and our own annihilation except collective growth, collective emotional evolution, right? That uh, I have an urge to go and fight somebody, or I have an urge to just stick my head in the sand and, watch TV all day or something, scroll, and not pay attention. Or, these are fight or flight, right? I want to fight you, I want to run away and just scroll or whatever. That we collectively do that. It's almost like we have a collective nervous system reaction to the things that are going on in the world. We freeze up, we're indecisive, which is what this country is in, where, we don't know. Are we on the left? Are we on the right? Or are we in the middle? Or what are we? But we have a collective nervous system response to the world. And like you said, it's evolutionary. We have our own individual nervous system responses, which are fight or flight or freeze or faint or fawn. These are the ways in which we have evolved to stay safe, right? And we kind of do the same thing on a collective level. What is the catalyst to get us to change? I think we have to change individually in order to see a big collective change. So it's one to one. It's that thing where the micro has to change in order for the macro to change. And if you pull out and you look at the world from far away, we are all one organism, we're all living on this one little ball and all this stuff is happening. It's all very interconnected. The flights going across it and the satellites, sending messages to us all and all the phone calls we're having with each other and the one-on-one conversations and all of that is happening as one thing from far away. And then you zoom in up close and it's individuals having individual internal conflicts with themselves and then conflicts with the people that are next to them and then the conflicts with the neighbor and the neighborhood and so on. I mean, what the Buddhists would say is duality. We live in duality. What are we going to do?
I think that's a scary thought, but it kind of leads me back to the question I was going to ask you at first: is mental health dead? And if it's not, how does it need to be alive?
Well, what makes you think mental health is dead? You mean as a
I,
practice or as an actual condition? Like nobody is mentally healthy or that our practice of mental health isn't working or both?
I think so. In 20 COVID, we had a big mental health push and kind of like those years. And I think with the change of administration, the conversation around mental health has kind of become more, I don't want to say pushed to the side, but it's like we have these school shooters or these mass shooters, and oh, mental health was a factor, but it's like, well, the politics were a factor, and the environment was a factor, and we talk about mental health as kind of like part of a whole, and I think mental health maybe got played out, like just the term, kind of like DEI, kind of got played out, like it took on, or like liberal. I don't want to say liberal got played out, but like there was, or I guess even with Republicans, it started to get stereotyped, and the negative stereotype overrid the positives that it was having. And so
Mhm.
when I ask, is mental health dead? I think for me, there was like a spark. There was a spark for a moment where mental health was important, emotional health was important, and it wasn't corny. I guess maybe I believe mental health, the progress that we've been making there, especially with individuals and education around it, has stagnated. And I think other things have probably taken the stage, and mental health is like, oh yeah, like your mental health, but it's kind of just like, yeah, like everybody deals with it. It's whatever. And maybe mental health isn't the word, but I guess where do we go from here to continue building on what we've been building on in a positive way? And so I guess the language around it, and I don't promote myself as like the most diversity, the most inclusion, the most everything. I'm more of a hard ass in my personal life, but I do think there's a lot of benefit in making people feel safe and giving people the opportunity to explore themselves, and no matter what that turns out to be, because I think there's benefit in that. And I think the more people are able to develop themselves and explore themselves, it's kind of like that microcosm. It starts within yourself, and then whatever that turns into, if you're taking it seriously, I think has a very positive effect on everybody else around you. But I think that conversation and that progress has halted. I think part of it's political, and I think part of it is kind of like when you tell a kid something so much they stop listening. And
Mhm.
so I think that the practice of the mental health, and people think yoga and meditation, and people think people in Berkeley, and people think, well, if you have the time to do it, it kind of became like this, almost like a status symbol in some part, but also at the other end of the spectrum, it became like self victimization. And so I think it just kind of became like this thing where it's a it's irrelevant almost, because it's become this something different to so many different people that it is nothing anymore. Am I making any sort of sense?
Yes, yes. The first thing I thought of when you said is mental health dead is have we commercialized it so much that it doesn't mean anything anymore? It's become, it's something that you have, you buy, and I don't think we have a very good definition of mental health. I'm going to look it up right now what the definition, like the American Psychological Association definition is. But to me, what mental health means in terms of the work that we do is the ability to connect your inner world to the outer world and be able to have an interaction that makes sense. And I'll give you an example. Let's say that internally I feel really bad about myself. I don't love myself very much. My mental health will be is good if I can take that feeling and share it with the world and get a positive support back from the world that says, no, actually, you are very lovable and good and whatever it is that I want to be inside. And or I get negative feedback from the world, and then my mental health is able to say, no, that's not true. I am actually worthy of love and care and attention or whatever. That to me, it's that balance between your inner world, what you are, who you think you are, and what you need, and being able to reach out into the outer world and find a conversation that you can have. And mental instability is the inability to work with that. So either you have a delusion inside yourself that is completely not communicating with the rest of the world, the outside world, or the outside world is attacking you and you don't have the capability or the resilience to handle what the outside world is telling you. That to me is my definition of mental health. But let's see what AI says. Let me share my screen. Mental health is your emotional, psychological, and social well-being, influencing how you think, feel, and act, and affecting how you handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. I think it's pretty similar. It's a critical component of overall health, existing on a continuum rather than a simple well or ill state. So that's that balance. So do I think that's an eternal need? That's what we're all trying to do. I don't, yeah, I think that's true of if you're a cave person, and that's going to be true, 100, 200 years from now when, maybe AI is integrated into us. And then maybe AI offers an additional way that you're going to have to balance yourself and your sense of self. I think what's getting confused too is that people are using mental health as, this kind of black box where you put everything you don't understand, you know. Well, your mental health is not good. And also that we're forgetting this continuum idea that you can be mentally healthy but have moments where you need a lot of help or you need to do a lot of self-analysis and adjustments and learning about yourself and all that. And then there's the side where you're so unhealthy that you can't reach yourself and others can't reach you either. And that's very dangerous. That's a very difficult place to be, and that's why we use medication and shock therapy or I forget what they call it, but the shock therapy, which is actually very effective, even though it has such a bad reputation. It's actually it can be very effective for some people. And then we also don't put into play all of our biological effects that we can actually just be sick. And you could have something wrong with your body that affects your mental health because of chemical reactions or because of deficiencies and things like that.
How does anybody relate their inner world to the external world right now? If the world around you is changing, if everything is going on, you don't know what to make of it, you have information overload, you don't know how to, and maybe the information is coming at you faster than you can process it. How do you ground yourself or center yourself in something that keeps changing, or you don't have, it feels like you don't have a grasp on?
I think that's really important to have an anchor to your mental health. And that anchor is going to be something you choose or something that you just kind of have, right? And what I mean by that is, and trigger warning here, but I want to use a very extreme example. Let's say that you're a child, you're 4 years old, and you're being abused, and you're by yourself, no siblings, and no way out of that situation. And you, after you've been harmed, you go into a corner and you sit by yourself and you come up with a story. You use your imagination. You think of a story of, one day I'm going to be a princess riding on the back of a horse and no one will be able to catch me. That is an anchor that child could have that keeps them present in despite the cruelty that is going on for them. And that they might, for example, speak to God. They might maybe have a pet that comes and sits with them and loves them, and that's an anchor. All of these are all ways that we all find to get through really hard times. An imaginary friend, you know. And so as you get older, you should become more aware of what that thing is, what that anchor is, and name it for what it is. It's your inner voice. It's your God that you speak to. It's your higher self, whatever it is, the universe. And that, and then the character of that thing is very important. And that's where we talked about beliefs, that the character of that thing, the character of that inner voice, that God, whatever it is is good. And you believe it's good. And that's where I think sometimes, well, that's where, we look at like schizophrenia, which is a different kind of mental health because it is a biologically, it's a problem with the way the brain is functioning. And so it's not like, oh, you're sick, you can't be well. You can be well with schizophrenia, but you have to recognize that, well, there's parts of me, this inner voice that I rely upon. I have to move stuff aside to figure out what's the real inner voice and not the sickness of the inner voice. So if you have that anchor, that is always with you, loving and kind, that's your anchor. And to me, that is the basis of mental health, my personal mental health. And everything that I have read and understood seems to confirm that as well. But we call it different things because I think, if you're a scientist, you can't name what that thing is. You can say maybe it's consciousness, but we don't know. You can't hold on to it. You can't, it's very, there are now scientists coming out now with AI. There's a lot of interest in figuring out what is consciousness. As people just being able to get outside of the disciplines and talk about them in terms of, I don't really know, but here's interesting phenomenon and bring in as much science as possible. But there is stuff that has not been shown by science, but we know by experience, by talking to people who have mental health issues, that the ones that can balance the bad things that happen to them, the negative realities, with a positive inner voice, or can have a negative inner voice, but positive reality outside, and be open to that exchange between the two to help them and fix them, bring them back into balance. They're the ones who have the best chance at being mentally healthy.
When you say that, I envision like someone almost, and I guess it could be on the spectrum of poor mental health or great mental health. I think even it's almost like I'm not sure if you've watched Star Wars where they like go into hyperspace and you see all the stars coming at you and the galaxies moving super fast. I picture that sort of background, and I picture a person with a blindfold, like just trying to feel their way, like almost like using the force, trying to feel their way through life. It's not like you can explain it to, I think, an extent, but I think I do think there's an area that is almost purely experiential. I think even if you have the language and I think even if you have the science, as an individual, you still have the words are the words, the definitions are the definitions, but you still have to decide what they mean. And
Mhm.
there's a collective understanding of what it all means, but then there's like this little gap between like what you see on paper and what you actually have to do or what you actually feel or the thoughts or the that kind of arise in you. And I think that's kind of where you end up almost just kind of like stumbling your way through a little bit and just like actually just feeling it out, which is kind of scary. But I also get like this overwhelming sense of positivity from that. It's like almost like a sense of wonder. And I think when I feel that, I feel, yeah, I don't mean to sound cheesy, but I feel safe. I feel a sense of trust. I feel the two words you used, love and kindness. And I can't explain love and kindness any more than the words.
Mhm.
But when I go through my life, I feel much more connected and I feel like things slow down just a little bit more and I can make sense of things and I can kind of move in the direction I need to when I have the feeling of that. Do you feel the same way? And or do you also have that feeling? And if you do, how much do you rely on I guess the feeling, and how much do you rely on that more um not maybe not logical, but kind of like that straight line, more conscious problem solving? I guess it's kind of like the age old the left brain right brain type of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, first of all, I'll say that I think, when mental health supports work, it's often, maybe most of the time, maybe all the time, because it's just confirming what you already feel and know deep inside. Or it's revealing something that you wish you could believe in, and then somebody is able to help you confirm it, you know. And I've been writing a bunch of this stuff down, and here another trigger warning. I put in little stories of people that I have worked with or I know. And one of the stories is about someone that I knew who we will call Jerry. And she was very intelligent, college a little bit after college, and she was a do-gooder. She felt that it was really important every day that she do something good in the world. So if somebody needed help, she would be there. You know, you need a ride, you need someone to pick you up from the airport, you need, a couple bucks here and there. If she didn't get a chance to do something good in the day, she would say, I walked around my neighborhood and I picked up garbage. The truth of the matter was that she felt like she had to prove that she was okay because she had been sexually abused by her father her whole life, even when she was older, when she was in her like late teens. And she felt so much shame and so much hatred for herself that she felt like she had to every day try to redeem herself, try to redeem herself. And what she needed to do from a very deep emotional level is to truly recognize that it wasn't her fault what had happened. And that not only that it wasn't her fault, but that even if she participated in any way, that she shouldn't be ashamed. She was not to, there was nothing about her at her very deep core, who she was, who she is not determined by what had happened to her, but was determined by who she really is. And that was very hard for her to come to terms with. So in the book, I don't complete the story that she ended up committing suicide. And that really came down to her inability to find mental health because of that very deep hurt. And that's why I say that you have to develop that inner voice. She had to give that inner voice permission because I think it's there for everybody. At the very, very depth of who we are is a recognition that you are a child of God, you are an innocent human, you are a soul that is experiencing all kinds of good and terrible things, like you're an actor in a play. And when you finish the play, you are not that character anymore. And she could not accept that. So what I do think is that mental health, in order to help you, requires your work, your ability to say, I'm open to change. I'm open to digging deeper and deeper. I'm going to, dig to the next level, which may be just a shitty, terrible level, but I'm going to keep digging underneath that until I find that shiny key, diamond that's inside of me that is okay, that is innocent, that is, you know, and that's why we do meditation, because meditation allows you to start to dig through the layers of stories that you've told yourself about what you are and who you are.